Good afternoon. Excited to talk to you today, and thanks for coming. And this is one of my favorite subjects, food. But the bottom line is, it's true that I really love what I do. And I love speaking about food, and and I think eating healthy food tastes great and is pleasurable and makes your life more enjoyable. And I like that interaction between intellectually knowing what you're eating is good for you and having it make food to make it taste great at the same time. So you're eating delicious food that's also good for you. It just is really, and to remove your fear of disease that you're not going to have happen to you what happens to other Americans. Who would want to live a life like that? Especially when you know you don't have to have heart attacks and strokes and get demented and get cancer. Who would want to eat that garbage and go and then have a life with fear and tragedy and horrible things happen to people? It's sad. But the exciting thing and the rewarding thing is that, that the more people we spread this message and the more people develop expertise in nutrition, each person becomes an individual who gets the reward and feeling good about their own personal health, but the reward about having the knowledge, and they walk the walk, and they put your oxygen mask on yourself first, and then help others, and then you become you radiate that light, and you have the ability to influence people that you're connected to and have better influence on their health. And it's better than winning the Olympics, isn't it? It's not just like getting some glory or some satisfaction because you earn something and it's over. There's something that's continues to affect you positively for the rest of your life. And like Jacqueline said, it's not just how long you live, it's how well you live and how much you enjoy your life every day you're alive. And being healthy and living a healthy life gives us the ability to enjoy our life every day we're alive, right? To live our life fully. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm grateful for you guys being here and learning about it and being interested in this as well. And it's a movement. And it's exciting to see it grow across the world. But there are all types of myths out there about food. And people don't know how to eat. It's amazing. They don't know how to eat, basically. Like we have the people believe in the high-protein diet, people who believe in low protein, people believe in high-fat, others people low-fat, high-carbohydrate, low-carbohydrate. People are arguing about some percent of macronutrients, and they're trying to test these diets, high in fat, low in fat, high in carb, and they're missing the whole point. They all miss the whole point. There's a broad assortment of macronutrient ratios that could be acceptable, but they're missing the point that it's the quality of your diet and the total micronutrient completeness of your diet. You want to have nutrient adequacy and nutrient and comprehensive exposure to thousands of nutrients that benefit humans. It's not about, their focus is on the wrong syllable, if you know what I mean. So anyway, I want to focus today on eating right, yes, but to realize that this is all about eating foods that are nutrient rich, that have features that benefit humans. Like a panda bear is designed for certain types of foods, right? They're designed to eat, bamboo shoots, whatever foods they eat, and alligators have certain foods they like to eat. And humans have certain foods that are best adapted to our biological structure that really give us magnificent good health. And I use the term GBOMBS, G-B-O-M-B-S, because I want an acronym that people can remember really easily. To know that to write on the tip of their tongue the foods they're supposed to be trying to eat regularly every day if possible. So let's go with what GBOMBS are, okay? So that stands for greens, obviously, for G in greens. B, beans. O for onions. M for mushrooms. B for berries. And S for seeds. Now here's the point. Every one of these foods individually has powerful immune-boosting anti-cancer effects. They're flooded with phytochemicals that fight disease. And we're going to look at some studies on each particular food individually. But let me ask you a question. What if we combined all the anti-cancer foods into a portfolio of foods that you use in your diet and to make your dishes and your cooking and your meal planning every day? Well, that's the key to really winning the war on cancer in America. It's not just living on a diet of all of berries or eating 3 big bowls of mushrooms a day. It's not really focusing on one food and just eating that food. It's getting a broad assortment of these beneficial superfoods in your diet on a regular basis. That's the key, because they work synergistically. So let's look at green vegetables for a minute, because there's one particular phytochemical in green vegetables I want people to know about. And I think it's really important that you know this, because I feel that nutrition should be taught all through elementary school continuously. Not a course, but something you take like reading, writing, arithmetic, and nutrition, through the whole educational process. Because what's more important than what impacts how long you're going to live and the quality of your life, and whether you get depressed or whether you get an autoimmune condition or develop psoriasis or lupus or kidney failure or brain damage or what's more important than actually your health? Why shouldn't we learn about this? But anyway, so one thing I want you to learn about, an important term, is ITCs, standing for isothiocyanates. It's one of the most powerful anti-cancer phytochemicals in natural plant foods. And there's a lot of different types of ITCs. There's about 100 different types. But they come from green vegetables, specifically the cruciferous green vegetables. And the word cruciferous is that family, like the broccoli family. And it's called cruciferous because the flower is shaped like a cross. But all these vegetables, like Brussels sprouts and bok choy and cabbage and broccoli rabe and watercress, arugula, all these vegetables the ITCs are not in the vegetable yet. What's in the vegetable are glucosinolates in the center of the cell, of the plant cell, that gets converted into ITCs as you chew the vegetable in your mouth. And the better you chew the vegetable in your mouth, the more cells you break open, and the more ITCs are formed. And it's important to know this because it really helps you remember to chew your salad really well when you're eating it. It helps you to chew your vegetables better. If you don't know this, you could not realize that you're not going to produce a lot of these anti-cancer compounds if you eat the salad without chewing it well. A lot of people do. They probably lose 90% of the potential nutrients there because they didn't chew it well enough. So there's an enzyme in the cell wall of the vegetable in a little package called myrosinase. And the myrosinase enzyme, when you chew the vegetable well, it releases it and it mixes with the glucosinolate in the center of the vegetable, with the center of the cell, in your mouth, producing the ITCs in your mouth. There's other interactions that take place with these compounds between the mouth and the saliva and the bacteria in the saliva that produces nitric oxide and other beneficial compounds as well. So the good things happen in the chewing process. Are you following that? Now, it's also important to note that myrosinase compound is heat sensitive. And that if I took the broccoli or the cabbage and I cooked it well and then ate it, I would have deactivated the myrosinase enzyme. So then when you chewed the cabbage or the cooked kale or the cooked broccoli, you wouldn't produce as much isothiocyanate had you eaten that same food raw, because the myrosinase compound is easily deactivated. So it's important to chew, chop, and blend, or to really break these compounds up while they're still raw. For example, in my book, Eat to Live, which I first wrote and published, I think, in 2004, I had descriptions on how to make an anti-cancer soup. And I wrote down in the book, juice of 5 mega carrots and put the juice in the soup and cut up your mushrooms and throw zucchini in there and onion and leeks and kale and mustard greens and collards, all these healthy foods in the soup. And I said, when the zucchini and the onion and the kale got soft and mushy, take it out with the tongs and put it into the Vitamix machine or the blender and blend it down so it's smooth and creamy with a few cashew nuts, and then pour it back into the base of the soup so the mushrooms stay lumpy and chunky and the beans are lumpy and chunky, but the greens and the onion are smooth and creamy to give the food a nice, a nice texture. But now I don't tell people to make the soup that way, because now I'm more aware of the need to retain the nutrients, the powerful anti-cancer effect of the onion and the greens that are those compounds that are lowered by cooking. So what would I do differently today to magnify the anti-cancer potential of the soup? How would I make that soup differently than I did years ago? Could I do anything to change it around to make it better? What do you think? Right. So what this lady just said, she correctly said that the ITCs in green vegetables and the organosulfide compounds in onions and leeks that are so important against cancer are not destroyed by heat. They're heat stable when they're water cooked in a soup or a stew, because the water prevents them from burning, and then water limits the temperature from going above 100 degrees Celsius. So in other words, these ITCs are not destroyed by cooking in the soup. But the soup heat would have destroyed them from being formed. So what she said was, you take the onion and the leek, what's raw, and the kale, the mustard greens raw, and put it in the blender and blend it while it's raw. and maybe a little liquid in there so it blends better, just enough to blend it up well, but don't add so much liquid that you dilute the chemical reaction too much. And you'll create this like smelly chemistry set in your kitchen. You know how when you cut an onion, it makes your eyes burn, right? Well, when the eyes are burning from cutting the onion, that represents you're producing acid like sulfenic acid and sulfuric acid, and organosulfides are being formed. The beneficial anti-cancer compounds are being formed as you cut the onion. That's why it's beneficial to use the onion close to the root where a lot of those organosulfide compounds concentrate, because a lot of people in the past used to cut off the bottom of the onion and throw it away because that would make their eyes tear. You know where all the concentrated chemicals were, but those are the compounds we want for cancer. We want to cut, and we don't want to remove too much of that skin of the onion. We want to just remove the thinner paper, but eat the onion close to the skin where all those chemicals are in high concentration. And then if you're going to cook them, blend them up raw in the blender and make it stink. Stand away from the blender. Don't put your eyes right over it, of course. Yeah. And then you can take that slurry that you just made and put it into the soup to cook, because you would have maximally formed those compounds first and while they're still raw, and now you can cook it and heat the soup, and you can cook the beans and cook the mushrooms and things like that. Are you following me? So that just says chew, chop, blend, and eat a lot of green vegetables, because the more green vegetables you eat, the longer you live. Here's a study on cruciferous vegetables, what we're talking about here, on over 100,000 people. And there was no tailing off in the benefits where longevity is concerned. What do I mean by tailing off or leveling off of the benefit? It means that there was a study, for example, on mushrooms that showed that women who had mushrooms on a regular daily basis, who ate 10 grams of mushrooms a day, which is about the size of your thumb, had a 64% lower risk of breast cancer, right? Now, that was on 10 grams of mushrooms. Now, what if you follow people who ate 20, 30, 40, 50 grams, 100 grams, 200 grams, 500 grams of mushrooms? Are you going to see cancer rates continue to decrease as you go up in a straight line? No, of course not. As you pass 20 to 30 grams of mushrooms, it levels off. Eating a whole bowl of mushrooms is not going to benefit you over eating a small half a cup. Did you follow that? But not with green vegetables, because green vegetables are an inherent basic food for all primates. And our body is designed to function on green vegetables. And in fact, the more green vegetables you eat, the longer you live. Matter of fact, I'm right here, I can't help myself. I'm going to have to eat this tile right here. And just go over here and stop the lecture and can eat that thing. But the point is that as an animal, as a species, we're designed inherently in our biological coding and the way our immune system functions. And actually, our immune system does function based on a lot of green vegetables. For example, the part of the cells, the DNA in every cell, has a section called the ARE, the antioxidant response element, which is fueled by a transcription protein called the NRF2 transcription protein. And that means that this transcription protein activates the part of the DNA that protects us. It keeps the cell clean. It repairs broken DNA crosslinks. It removes free radicals. It's our most active part of the DNA that protects us against disease. And that part is activated by green vegetables, by the isothiocyanate, the ITCs in green vegetables, and other phytochemicals that we get from these colorful plants. In other words, we don't have a functioning immune system. You don't like green vegetables? Well, tough on you, you know. But of course, taste is learned, and people, and we develop a taste for things we get used to eating regularly. And cruciferous vegetables have been tested with people with those genes, like for example, the GST1 gene for breast cancer. People who are highly prone to breast cancer, if those women are given green vegetables, the risk of breast cancer goes down by more than half. But they weren't given that much. And what if they were given the amount I recommend, which is much more than that, or given the other synergistic effects, the other beneficial effects, like from the other G-bombs? That was just, that's pretty significant, half, just from having the green vegetables with no other changes. And people with that was the BRCA1 gene, like the BRCA1 gene for breast cancer. And the GST1 gene for colon cancer also shows a tremendous reduction in colon cancer from the consumption of green vegetables. I'm saying that green vegetables consumption in the highest tertile or quartile is linked to dramatic reductions in almost all cancers that affect humans.